And in the season finale, the soccer world is abuzz with the Trent Krim report. Everybody's talking about how Ted had a panic attack. He can't avoid it. He's getting a lot of supportive texts, including his ex-wife. They start going back and forth, but he just kind of plays it off like he's fine. But as he steps foot out of his apartment, he realizes that he is the center of attention. Everybody's staring at him. It's like everybody knows his deep, dark secret. When he finally meets up with Beard, though, Beard acts like he doesn't know what's going on, even though he definitely does. As he makes his way over to the pitch and up to Rebecca's office to give her biscuits, Rebecca has received flowers from Edwin Akufu. But it's not as nice of a gesture as it seems, because the card says, "Sorry for your loss. Sam will be great with us." Ted then walks into Rebecca's office, and immediately Rebecca says that they will find the rat. And not only will they find the rat, she's planning on calling Trent's newspaper and finding out who the source is. But Ted starts defending Trent, saying he's a good guy, and saying that they really don't need to look into who the rat is. He tells the group that everything the anonymous source said was true, but also they have a massive game coming up. They're up for promotion. All they need is a tie or a win, and they're up. But as Ted, Keely, Higgins, and Rebecca chatted up in her office, downstairs, the courting of Sam Mabasanya has continued because Edwin Akufu sent him a Casablanca jersey with his name on the back, just to get a feel for things. And he really likes the way it looks. Now, one person who has yet to show up to the pitch that day is Roy, and he's got two people looking for him. Jamie, to tell him what happened, and Nate, to tell him what happened. They both end up trickling into Beard's office and asking, "Have you seen Roy?" And Beard gives both the same response, "No." But when Nate comes in, Beard shows him the paper and says, "Hey, have you seen this?" And Nate goes, "Oh, yeah, no, it's awful." And Beard just stares at him and says, "Yeah, it was awful." It gets really awkward, and all Nate can do is back up out of Beard's office. But that's when he almost runs into Roy, who has shown up that day. Beard lets him know that Jamie's looking for him, but he's looking for Jamie as well. He yells for Jamie, and they go into the equipment room. And before Roy can even get a word out, Jamie explains the whole thing and apologizes, saying he doesn't want to get in between Roy and Keely's relationship. And instead of beating the crap out of him, which is probably what the old Roy Kent did, he just grunted and forgave him. Everybody then needs to head out to the pitch for practice, and Ted needs to address the elephant in the room. He apologizes to the team, saying that what was written in the paper is true, but he didn't like the fact that they found out that way, because they should have found out from him. They immediately forgive Ted for this, but vow that when they do sniff out the rat, they're planning on taking socks full of soap to his stomach. But Ted tells them the same thing he told Rebecca. "Guys, don't even worry about it. Let's focus on something more productive, like Nate the Great's false nine." So the team heads off to practice. But as they're out there trying to perfect the false nine, Keely gets a very exciting email. The people that backed Banter want to back Keely, giving her enough money to open up her own PR firm. Problem is, this would force her to leave Richmond. Because of this, she needs a little bit of advice. Normally for a thing like this, she would go to Ted or Roy, but they're at practice and she can't tell Rebecca, so she goes to Higgins. And the advice that Higgins gives her is that a good mentor will hope that she moves on, but a great mentor will know that she'll move on. So that gives Keely a pretty good idea of what to do. So practice wraps up, everybody goes their separate ways. Keely goes home to Roy, and they're talking about their days, and Roy tells her what happened with Jamie. And she tells Roy about the finance PR firm. And they start celebrating a little bit. Keely tells Roy how much she loves him. Spirits are flying high. As they crack open a bottle of wine, Keely gets a ping on her tablet, and it ends up being the Vanity Fair article. It's published. But as they scroll through it, all of the pictures are just of Keely. None of them include Roy. And Keely feels terrible. She vows to contact the publisher, have it fixed immediately. But Roy says, "No, don't you dare. You look incredible in these." And then they head up to the bedroom to, celebrate in other ways. But then there's Sam, who's walking home, and he's still conflicted on exactly what to do with Edwin's offer. Edwin is still in town, waiting for his response. And Sam needs some advice, just like Keely did earlier. But Sam doesn't go to Higgins. He ends up calling his dad. And the advice that his dad gives him is that the universe will give him a sign to let him know what he should do. As soon as he hangs up the phone with his dad, he sees a bunch of kids playing in the park. And one of those kids is wearing Sam's Richmond jersey. And that could be the sign that Sam needed, but he still is undecided. Now, two people who are not celebrating, but they are together, are Beard and Ted. They head to the pub that night for dinner, and Beard says, "So, are you going to say anything to Nate?" And Ted has this philosophy that when it comes to apologies, you have to wait for it to come to you. But Beard knows that that's not going to happen. Nate's not going to go to Ted. But even though Nate might need a little push, Ted's not going to push him to do it. Beard, though, is concerned. He thinks that getting an apology from Nate will be good, not just for Nate, but more importantly, good for Ted. Because Ted has been bottling all of this in, and he's worried that eventually he's going to bust. The next day, everybody starts heading to the pitch, and Keely has told Rebecca. And Rebecca is thrilled for her friend, but she's sad because she won't have her friend around anymore. As the two women are crying and hugging, Rebecca gets an alert on her phone that Rupert has bought West Ham United. All of that crap about how he was done with football and he was giving up his shares because it was the right thing to do was just that. It was crap. Now, if the team ends up getting promoted, they're going to be seeing West Ham United. Now all they have to do is get a tie or ideally win. The group huddles up in Ted's office, and Ted says, all right, we all good to go on running Nate's false nine today? And everybody agrees that that'll be the strategy they go with. Before the group heads out to the pitch, Ted asks, does anybody else have anything they want to talk about before we get out there? And Roy takes about 45 words to say, I could use some advice, but he finally gets there. And Ted asks him, are you saying you want to join the Diamond Dogs? And Roy says, hell no. I'm just saying I wouldn't mind being in the room as, stuff happens. And Ted says, oh, okay, well, we'll hand out a one-time visitor's pass. So the Diamond Dogs mount up, and Roy tells the group that when he did that photo shoot, they didn't end up using a single picture with him in it. And honestly, it hurt his feelings a little bit. But the thing is, she looked amazing. And she looked amazing on her own. She looked amazing without Roy Kent. To the point where it actually would have looked weird if he was in the pictures. And then at Rebecca's dad's funeral, Jamie Tart has to go and tell Rebecca that he's still in love with her. And the group is shocked that Jamie's still standing, and Roy is equally as surprised, and he's mad at himself for it. And the group doesn't offer any advice. Ted just says, Roy, we appreciate you barking at us. Nate then announces to the group that he also has something to say. Beard and Ted are kind of waiting for him to man up and tell him that he was the anonymous source, but instead, he just tells Roy that before the photo shoot, he ended up kissing Keely. And Roy could not have cared less. He immediately forgives Nate. Nate can't believe that he kissed his girlfriend, and he doesn't care. Jamie just talked to his girlfriend, and he's furious. But Roy says, Nate, you made a mistake, man. It's all good. The Diamond Dogs then dismount, and Roy can't believe that that was actually a Diamond Dog meeting. He actually ends up liking it. But the team needs to worry about getting promoted. They head out there, and Nate's false nine is not working. At halftime, the team is trailing 2-0. Ted ends up getting the coaches in the room together and saying, it's not looking good. I mean, do we abandon the false nine? And Nate, who all of a sudden became Harry Hardass, says that they should abandon the false nine. It would work if they had the players who knew how to execute it. But Ted doesn't agree. He thinks they should stick with it. He asks Roy his opinion, and Roy says, why don't you go ask the players? They're the ones who have to do it. So that's exactly what Ted does. He heads out to the locker room where he sees a bleak group and asks them, do you guys want to abandon this thing? And Jan, of all people, stands up and says that the group is perfectly capable of executing the false nine. It's a good strategy and it will work. And he's so honest that everybody knows he can't lie. So it's set. The group is going to go out in the second half and try to execute Nate's false nine. They all put their hand in a circle together, but they're waiting for one person, and that's Isaac, who walks right through the circle over to the Believe sign that Ted put up last year, and he touches it. And instead of everybody doing a hands in a circle, they touch the Believe sign, and they head out for the second half. But as Ted is making his way out, he notices that Nate is just pacing in his office. He goes in and asks him, is everything okay? And Nate says, yeah, Ted, everything is okay. Ted walks in and says, Nate, what is it? What did I do? You're mad as hell at me. I just want to know why. So Nate turns around and tells him, you made me feel like I was the most important person in the whole world. And then you abandoned me. And I worked my ass off trying to get your attention back. But the more I did, the less you cared. Nate starts wiping tears from his eyes and he yells, it's like I was invisible. You don't even have the photo I gave you for Christmas in your office. It's just a picture of dumb Americans, which I'm going to assume are Ted's family. But Nate's on a roll. He yells at Ted, now you're just going to play Nate's false nine. So when the team messes up, and they will mess up, you're just going to blame that on me. Well, screw that. You know, Ted, everybody loves you. Well, I think you're a joke. Without me, we wouldn't have won a single match, and we would have shipped your ass back to Kansas, where you belong with your son. Because you sure as hell don't belong here. But I do. I belong here. This didn't just fall into my lap. I earned this. Ted says, I know you did, Nate, and if I didn't tell you how important you were to me before, I apologize. And Nate says, no. You're full of it. You know what? Fuck you, Ted. And then he walks out. Ted can't dwell on it too much. He does have a game to coach. And that's exactly what Ted, Roy, and Beard are doing. Nate, however, is sulking on the bench. It's understandable. His false nine hasn't worked. 80 minutes in, they're still down 2-0. But then they finally get their first break. Sam ends up putting it in, and now they're only down 1 with 10 minutes left. The team has life, but Nate is still sulking on the bench. Even when, in the final seconds, Jamie ends up drawing a penalty kick, Nate still is kind of sulking on the bench. This could tie the game. This could send Richmond back up to where they belong. And luckily for them, Jamie hasn't missed a penalty kick all year. But instead of Jamie taking it, he ends up giving it to Danny Rojas, the man who, the last time he took a penalty kick, ended up, unfortunately, killing a mascot. That time, Danny ended up missing. This time, though, he ends up sending Richmond back up to the Premier League. The team celebrates on the pitch, everybody except one person, Nate, who ends up storming off into the locker room where he rips down the Believe sign, tearing it in half, leaving it on Ted's desk, and then leaving forever. In the locker room, the team, though, is celebrating. But there's one person that needs an answer, and that is Edwin Akufu. He ends up getting Sam alone in an office and congratulating him on the goal, but saying, man, they're really going to miss you when you come play for me. But Sam rejects him. He thanks him for the offer, but says that his time in Richmond isn't done, and he hopes that he understands. And Edwin does not understand. He screams at Sam that he's going to ruin his career. He'll never play for the Nigerian national team. He is very upset. Sam then heads back in to celebrate with his teammates, and Ted heads to the podium to do the post-game presser. And the big question on everybody isn't necessarily going up to the Premier League. It's the report that came out over his panic attack. And Ted opens up to the media about his struggles with anxiety, but there's one media member that is noticeably absent, and it's Trent Krim from The Independent. After the presser, he heads up to Rebecca's office and they celebrate with some champagne, and she lets Ted know that Rupert just bought West Ham United. So they end up talking about how they're going to end up running into Rupert next season. But as they're discussing this, Sam walks in, and it gets extremely awkward because Sam doesn't know that Ted knows. Rebecca knows that Ted knows. And obviously Ted knows that Ted knows. But he tries his best to make things not awkward. So Sam stays, and he tells them that he's decided to stay at Richmond. Ted ends up asking him, Sam, I'm just curious, but why did you decide to stay? And Sam looks at Ted and says, I wish I could say it's because of my feelings for you, but the truth is, I think I need to stop worrying about how others feel about me. I'm staying because it's what's best for me and my journey. And then Sam leaves. But that message, even though it was spoken to Ted, was clearly directed at Rebecca. Ted ends up heading out of the facility, and he runs into that missing reporter, Trent Krim. It turns out Trent Krim is no longer Trent Krim, the Independent. He's just Trent Krim, Independent, because Trent Krim was fired for revealing an anonymous source. Ted tells him, Trent, it wasn't me. And Trent says, Ted, I know it wasn't you because I'm the person who told the newspaper that I revealed the anonymous source. Ted tells him, I hope our paths cross again soon. And Trent says, yeah, me too. I enjoy our chats. Trent then wishes him good luck next season, and Ted heads home. 5 days later, Keely is packing up her office with Roy. And because it's the last day they're working in the same building together, Roy has gotten her a present. It's a vacation, a 6-week vacation. But Keely tells him while she appreciates it, she can't go. She starts her new job the next day. Roy thinks that she can do her job from that villa by the sea, but she can't. So she tells Roy, you deserve the vacation. Go by yourself. But Roy looks at her and says, are we breaking up? And she says, no, of course not. You're going to take a well-earned holiday while I lock myself in a room and work to death for 6 weeks. She then tells Roy that she loves him and promises that they'll be okay. 3 weeks after that, Sam has decided to follow Edwin's lead, kind of. He ends up buying a storefront, which he's going to turn into a Nigerian restaurant. So he's setting up some roots in Richmond. But then 2 months later, training camp opens up. It doesn't just open up for Richmond, it opens up for West Ham United and their new coach, Nate Shelley. That's right, Nate was hired by Rupert to be the new coach of West Ham United. And that is how Season 2 of Ted Lasso ends. Thank you so much for watching this whole recap. I really appreciate it. Consider subscribing to the channel. Hit thumbs up if you like this. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought this sucked. I do have merch, so go buy like a t-shirt or something. The holidays are coming up. Who wouldn't want a t-shirt that says the recaps on it? You know you do. Please be nice in the comment section. Nasty comments hurt my feelings. But once again, just know I really appreciate everybody checking this out.